The King of Ireland's son has gone on his quest, and Laheen the eagle has told him to look for the swans. They came, they flew down, and when they touched the ground, they transformed themselves into 3 maidens and went to bathe in the lake. The one who carried the green scarf left her swan skin under a bush. The king's son took it and hid it in a hollow tree. 2 of the maidens soon came out of the water, put on their swan skins, and flew away as swans. The younger maiden stayed for a while in the lake. Then she came out and began to search for her swan skin. She searched, and at last the king's son heard her say, "I would do anything in the world for the creature who would find my swan skin for me." Then he came from where he was hiding and gave her the swan skin. "To show me the way to your father's dominion." "I would prefer to do anything else for you," said the maiden. "I do not want anything else," said the King of Ireland's son. "If I show you how to get there, will you be content?" "I shall be content." "You must never let my father know that I showed you the way, and he must not know when you come that you are the King of Ireland's son." "I will not tell him you showed me the way, and I will not let him know who I am." Now that she had the swan skin, she was able to transform herself. She whistled, and a blue falcon came down and perched on a tree. "That falcon is my own bird's," said she. "Follow where it flies, and you will come to my father's house. And now goodbye to you. You will be in danger, but I will try to help you. Fidelma is my name." She rose up as a swan and flew away. The blue falcon went flying from bush to bush and from rock to rock. The night came, but in the morning the blue falcon was seen again. The king's son followed, and at last he saw a house before him. He went in, and there, seated on a chair of gold, was the man who seemed so tall when he threw down the cards upon the heap of stones. The enchanter did not recognize the king's son without his hawk and his hound, and the fine clothes he used to wear. He asked who he was, and the king's son said he was a youth who had just finished an apprenticeship to a wizard. "And," said he, "I have heard that you have 3 fair daughters, and I came to strive to gain one of them for a wife." "In that case," said the enchanter of the Black Badlands, "you will have to do 3 tasks for me. If you are able to do them, I will give you one of my 3 daughters in marriage. If you fail to do any one of them, you will lose your head. Are you willing to make the trial?" "I am willing," said the King of Ireland's son. "Then I shall give you your first task tomorrow. It is unlucky that you came today. In this country we eat a meal only once a week, and we have had our meal this morning." "It is all the same to me," said the king's son. "I can do without food or drink for a month without any hardship." "I suppose you can do without sleep, too," said the enchanter of the Black Badlands. "Easily," said the King of Ireland's son. "That is good. Come outside now, and I'll show you your bed." He took the king's son outside and showed him a dry, narrow water tank at the gable end of the house. "There is where you are to sleep," said the enchanter. "Tuck yourself into it now and be ready for your first task at the rising of the sun." The King of Ireland's son went into the little tank. He was uncomfortable there, you may be sure, but in the middle of the night, Fidelma came and brought him into a fine room where he ate and then slept until the sun was about to rise in the morning. She called him, and he went outside and laid himself down in the water tank. As soon as the sun rose, the enchanter of the Black Badlands came out of the house and stood beside the water tank. "Come now," said he, "and I will show you the first task you have to perform." He took him to where a herd of goats was grazing. Away from the goats was a fawn with white feet and little bright horns. The fawn saw them, bounded into the air, and raced away to the wood as quickly as any arrow that a man ever shot from a bow. "That is Whitefoot, the fawn," said the enchanter of the Black Backlands. "She grazes with my goats, but none of my gillies can bring her into my goat house. Here is your first task. Run down Whitefoot the fawn, and bring her with my goats into the goat shelter this evening." When he said that, the enchanter of the Black Backlands went away laughing to himself. "Goodbye, my life," said the King of Ireland's son. "I might as well try to catch an eagle on the wing as to run down the deer that has gone out of sight already." He sat down on the ground, and his despair was great. Then his name was called, and he saw Fidelma coming towards him. She looked at him as though she were in dread, and said, "What task has my father set you?" He told her, and then she smiled. "I was in dread it would be a more terrible task," she said. "This one is easy. I can help you to catch the Whitefoot the fawn. But first eat what I have brought you." She put down bread and meat and wine, and they sat down and ate and drank. "I thought he might set you this task," she said, "and so I brought you something from my father's store of enchanted things. Here are the shoes of swiftness. With these on your feet you can run down Whitefoot the fawn, but you must catch her before she has gone very far away. Remember that she must be brought in when the goats are going into their shelter at sunset. You will have to walk back, for all the time you must keep hold of her silver horns. Hasten now, run her down with the shoes of swiftness, and then lay hold of her horns. Above all things, Whitefoot dreads the loss of her silver horns." He thanked Fidelma. He put on the shoes of swiftness and went into the wood. Now he could go as the eagle flies. He found Whitefoot the fawn drinking at the raven's pool. When she saw him, she went from thicket to thicket. The shoes of swiftness were hardly any use to him in these shut-in places. At last he beat her from the last thicket. It was the hour of noontide then. There was a clear plain before them, and with the shoes of swiftness he ran her down. There were tears in the fawn's eyes, and he knew she was troubled with the dread of losing her silver horns. He kept his hands on the horns, and they went back over miles of plain and pasture, bog and wood. The hours were going quicker than they were going. When he came within the domain of the enchanter of the Black Backlands, he saw the goats going quickly before him. They were hurrying from their pastures to the goat shelter, one stopping, maybe, to bite the top of a hedge, and another giving this one a blow with her horns to hurry on. "By your silver horns, we must go faster," said the King of Ireland's son to the fawn. They went more quickly then. He saw the enchanter of the Black Backlands waiting at the goat house, now counting the goats that came along, and now looking at the sun. When he saw the King of Ireland's son coming with his capture, he was so angry that he struck an old, full-bearded goat that had stopped to rub itself. The goat reared up and struck him with his horns. "Well," said the enchanter of the Black Backlands, "you have performed your first task, I see. You are a greater enchanter than I thought you were. Whitefoot the fawn can go in with my goats. Go back now to your own sleeping place. Tomorrow I'll come to you early and give you your second task." The King of Ireland's son went back into the dry water tank. He was tired with his day's journey after Whitefoot the fawn. It was his hope that Fidelma would come to him and give him shelter for that night. Until the white moon rose above the trees, until the hounds went out hunting for themselves, until the foxes came down and hid in the hedges, waiting for the cocks and hens to stir out at the first light. So long did the King of Ireland's son stay huddled in the dry water tank. By that time he was stiff and sore and hungry. He saw a great white owl flying towards the tank. The owl perched on the edge and stared at the king's son. "Have you a message for me?" he asked. The owl shrugged with its wings 3 times. He thought that meant a message. He got out of the tank and prepared to follow the owl. It flew slowly and near the ground, so he was able to follow it along a path through the woods. The king's son thought the owl was bringing him to a place where Fidelma was, and that he would get food there and shelter for the rest of the night. And sure enough, the owl flew to a little house in the wood. The king's son looked through the window, and he saw a room lighted with candles, and a table with plates and dishes and cups, with bread and meat and wine. And he saw at the fire a young woman spinning at a spinning wheel, and her back was towards him, and her hair was the same as Fidelma's. Then he lifted the latch of the door, and went very joyfully into the little house. But when the young woman at the spinning wheel turned round, he saw that she was not Fidelma at all. She had a little mouth, a long and hooked nose, and her eyes looked crossways at a person. The thread she was spinning she bit with her long teeth, and she said, "You are welcome here, Prince." "And who are you?" said the King of Ireland's son. "Aoife is my name," she said. I am the eldest and the wisest daughter of the enchanter of the Black Backlands. My father is preparing a task for you, said she, and it will be a terrible task, and there will be no one to help you with it, so you will lose your head surely. And what I would advise you to do is to escape out of the country at once. And how can I escape? Said the King of Ireland's son. There's only one way to escape, said she, and that is for you to take the slight red steed that my father has secured under 9 locks. That steed is the only creature that can bring you to your own country. I will show you how to get it, and then I will ride to your home with you. And why should you do that? Said the King of Ireland's son. Because I would marry you, said Aoife. But, said he, if I live at all, Fidelma is the one I will marry. No sooner did he say the words than Aoife screamed out, Seize him, my cat of the mountain! Seize him and hold him! Then the cat of the mountain, that was under the table, sprang across the room and fixed himself on his shoulder. He ran out of the house. All the time he was running, the cat of the mountain was trying to tear his eyes out. He made his way through woods and thickets, and mighty glad he was when he saw the tank at the gable end of the house. The cat of the mountain dropped him from his back then. He got into the tank and waited and waited. No message came from Fidelma. He was a long time there, stiff and sore and hungry, before the sun rose and the enchanter of the Black Backlands came out of the house.